Roosevelt University actually has two buildings in Chicago, which are the Auditorium Building, the Louis Sullivan Auditorium Building, and then the Gage Building, which is at 18 South Michigan. Their flagship, though, is the Auditorium Building. The genius of actually using this site was that they could remain in the Auditorium Building and be stewards to that cultural landmark, and then expand, not necessarily as a freestanding building, but a building that helped enhance their existing campus. As we knew we were building against one of the most known buildings, in modern architecture, especially in Chicago, that we had a great challenge. And that challenge was, how do we build to that same type of spirit as Louis Sullivan, but not dilute it? Because the Auditorium Building is about as pure of a building as you'll find in Chicago. If you really look at it, it was the tallest tower at that time in Chicago. But I think showed this idea of transition and aspiration, which really goes throughout all Sullivan's works. And he talks about transcendence quite a bit. That, though, was really important, because if you look at the mission of Roosevelt University, their commitment to social justice, many of the students who are there are the first members of their families to have gone to school. This idea of transcendence and transition, really permeates the whole idea of the university, and that's what makes it, I think, such a unique and important institution. Part of that was realizing that this campus had to interconnect on many levels with the historic auditorium building. That in itself was quite difficult, given its position, because we really had to find ways of connecting both the Michigan Avenue campus and different levels within the auditorium structure. One of the things that was important to us was that the tower itself was set back from the auditorium building, and that where we had to connect, that those floors were cantilevered over, so that we could build this back away from the foundations of the existing auditorium structure, which were original raft foundations. We were afraid of the weight and height of the tower, that there'd be too much movement between both the structures. We have this tower that signals the entrance to the Auditorium Theater that emerges from this block, eventually was the location of his office. And what I like the idea of doing this tower mid-block, it sort of continues that pattern of a tower emerging from the sort of urban block, connecting to the historical buildings and actually reinvigorating those buildings and giving them new life.
We, of course, had to incorporate the main campus of Roosevelt into the building, and at many points we've connected on different floors to have this sort of space of connectivity, so that you didn't feel like you were actually going to two different buildings. You were actually in one building.
When we look at the Auditorium Building, it has some aspects of classic architecture that we really liked. The base, the middle, the top, and then the kind of ascending, long, stretching pieces that you can see in the arches that connect the whole thing together. We also were really engaged with how the tower extends from the ground up through the main block and ascends toward the sky. And we tried to express that in the development of the base of this building, and how the tower ascends to the sky. And then there's definite relationship between the scale and proportion of this tower and the scale and proportion of the tower of the Roosevelt Building in behind.
We looked at all the things that were happening here, and we knew that somehow we had to try our best to contribute to that cultural history, while of course meeting the very, very tight budgets and deadlines and needs of Roosevelt University.